Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first webinar of our Order Intelligence series, Unlocking Hidden Profits with the Power of Data Analysis. My name is Elizabeth Morris. I'm the events manager here at Cavallo. Just a few housekeeping items before we dive in. First, the format for today's webinar will be about a 40-minute presentation followed by time for Q&A. Feel free to ask questions at any point throughout the presentation using that Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and we will do our very best to get to all your questions at the end of the presentation. Today's webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to share it with colleagues starting tomorrow. You'll find it on our YouTube channel as well as our events page on our website. We are super excited to have Mike Radin here, profit expert, senior sales engineer from Cavallo. We at Cavallo know that many businesses struggle to maximize profits or margins. Mike is going to share exactly how we can help change that for you and your business. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Mike to introduce himself and kick us off.
Yeah, thanks for kicking things off in the introduction, Elizabeth. Start off, just do an introduction of myself. I know Elizabeth already gave away my name and title, but I'll repeat that. Mike Radin. I'm a senior sales engineer here at Cavallo. I've been at Cavallo for about 3 years now. I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which happens to be where Cavallo is headquartered and was founded. Prior to joining Cavallo, I spent 7+ years as a business intelligence analyst in the chemical and footwear industries. And then just for a little fun, some of my hobbies include hiking. My wife and I try to make a yearly trip out of visiting national parks. I think we've been to 8 or 9 so far, and we always look forward to planning that trip every year. I enjoy getting out and playing golf when the weather in Michigan allows for it, and it's a good excuse to travel somewhere warmer in the winters here. And in the last few years, I've really picked up pickleball. It's a really great time to get out with family and friends and enjoy that as well. For today's agenda, I'm going to start off by doing an introduction to Cavallo. For those of you who may not be as familiar with us, give a little background on who we are and how we fit into the industry and the value we deliver for our customers. Then we're going to talk through some of the current challenges in the industry that we're seeing. We're going to focus a little bit on our order intelligence platform, but the key focus for today's webinar is going to be profit analytics, and that's just one aspect of our order intelligence platform. Then we'll go ahead, jump into that live demo, and as Elizabeth mentioned, we'll finish off with Q&A. So again, if you do have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to enter those in the chat below. So a little background on Cavallo. Cavallo has 20+ years of experience in maximizing customers' profits since being founded by tenured distributors. We aim to help our customers execute flawless orders and maximize profitability. Creating value for our customers and their success is extremely important to us. We've been able to create hundreds of millions of dollars of value for our customers over the 20 years, and continuous research and involvement in the industry, as well as our invaluable discussions with our customer and partners, allows us to keep innovating where and how we're able to continue to drive value for our customers. We're also very proud of our 95 Net Promoter Score, which is considered world-class and is a true testament to the partnership and the great work our support team provides. You can see a variety of different logos of customers we work with and have worked with in the past, and really shows all the different industries and different types of businesses that we're able to help drive that value for. Now let's talk a little bit about the state of distribution. We know that the average mid-market distributor earns less than 5 cents per dollar in pre-tax profit. Hence, we know how important it is to protect that margin and how important it is to have tools in place to help you do that. Maximizing profit requires mastering orders, which demands differentiated technology. Margin and profit leaks become commonplace with outdated order management systems. And we also know that many companies are not necessarily maximizing their profit at the line level. And there are over 1 billion highly useful data points trapped in existing platforms. And the reality is that a lot of companies do not know what data points they have, how to access, or how to use them. That's where Cavallo comes in and what we'll be talking a lot about today. In our 20 years of experience serving distributors, we've found that distributors fall short of profit potential on over 1/3 of their orders. And this number is actually closer to 40%. This reflects the common inefficiencies and challenges in managing orders, such as errors, manual processes, or the lack of visibility into order data, all of which can prevent customers from maximizing their profitability. We know that businesses struggle with massive data volumes, and this can lead to hidden profit erosion. It is not uncommon to have 125,000 orders in a year in wholesale distribution. And as we're going through this, feel free to kind of plug in your own numbers and let this start kind of building up in your minds as well. And we know that on those orders, they can have 50 data fields per order or more. And as you start multiplying these numbers together, you're going to see how much data you really have. Think of how many lines you have on average per order. That could easily be 10. So multiply that by 10 lines per order. And then something that we don't always consider is the human touches per order. All of the different touch points as an order moves through its life cycle from the time it's created till the time it's invoiced. It may have been converted from a quote, manually entered, passing it off to your warehouse team to pick, pack, ship, invoice. All of those different touch points are opportunities for more errors or human mistakes. And this really leads to how we can get to over 1 billion available data points, as we mentioned earlier, with all the orders you have for a year. Distributors are sitting on this gold mine of data, and it's really important that we have the ability to harness that with technology. This example just shows us 1 year, and you can start to see how this increases exponentially over the course of several years. So enter Cavallo's Order Intelligence platform. Order Intelligence is a suite of tools designed to optimize and automate order management processes within ERP systems. It helps businesses streamline order workflows, prevent errors, and enhance profitability via real-time insights, proactive tools for issue resolution and order management, and comprehensive data analytics. Find is the first pillar of order intelligence and is represented by our Profit Scan application. Profit Scan provides real-time defect detection by pinpointing margin losses by scanning all in-flight quotes and orders in minutes to catch those with low margins before it's too late. Second is Fix, our mission control application. Mission control gives full visibility of every order, and through automation, business rules, and workflows, it provides proactive system-wide controls that prevent margin leaks and other order problems while eliminating inefficiencies and bottlenecks. And third is Analyze, our profit analytics application, which is going to be the focus of today's webinar and what we spend the rest of the time talking about. Without giving too much away, profit analytics taps into massive volumes of data, allowing you to gain a deep data-driven understanding of the state of your business to reveal actionable insights into the factors that impact your margin performance most. So again, don't want to give quite everything away on profit analytics, but here are some of the value drivers of PA. It transforms your raw data spanning thousands of customers, orders, and items into actionable insights. It's going to give you the tools to closely monitor your customer activity and measure their churn risk to prevent attrition. With KPI, trend, and variance analysis, you're going to have access to valuable insights that are otherwise difficult to surface. And we're going to show a lot more once we get into this demo. This is a quote from a customer of ours. This platform would have instantly spotted that our vendor raised the unit cost of one of our 3,800 SKUs before it festered into a 5-figure loss. This is one of many real-life examples we have of how we've helped our customers maximize and reclaim margin. Profit analytics could have helped this particular customer find the needle in the haystack to prevent that from festering into that 5-figure loss, excuse me. And this is just one example with one item out of 3,800 SKUs, and we're not even getting down into customer class, other levels of data that we're able to navigate into. So let's go ahead and get ready for the demo. I want to set some context before we jump in. Imagine having a crystal clear view of your business's profitability, no more needing to guess where margin leaks are happening. Cavallo's profit analytics platform is going to deliver those immediate insights, driving smarter decisions and stronger profitability without the need to invest in expensive BI tools or consultant time. So what's your profitability costing you? Right now, you might be missing out on thousands, even millions in profits due to invisible margin leaks. Without knowing exactly where your profits are slipping away, how can you stop it? Cavallo Profit Analytics puts a stop to that guesswork, transforming your data into those real-time actionable insights so you can see exactly where and why your margins are eroding and take immediate corrective action. So now I'm going to go ahead and jump into the application. And now that we have it open, I like to start by setting some context. The demo company that we're looking at today is an example of a distributor who operates in both the B2B and retail environments. And where I like to always start off when talking about profit analytics on our homepage is our ability to set date parameters in which you want to look at data for. So if we just start in the top right corner, we can see that we have a selected time period, a selected reference date, and a comparison period. The ability to change these and navigate this how you want to and see different snapshots of data is really going to give you access to a lot of different reports within the tool just by having that control over the dates. In the time period selection, you can select from yesterday, month to date, quarter to date, last calendar year, or trailing 3 or 12 months to get a lot of different views of your data. And you can look at that from a specific reference point. So if I wanted to look at quarter 2, for example, of 2024, I could select June 30th as my reference date. And now that I navigate to quarter to date, I can see that that's now looking at 4/1/24 through 6/30/24. And my comparison period is currently set to prior period. So that's going to look at Q1 if I wanted to compare Q1 24 to Q2 2024. But I could also compare that to the same time period last year. So by changing that comparison period, I'm now comparing Q2 of 24 to Q2 of 2023. For the purpose of today's demo, I'm going to go ahead and stick with last calendar year just so we have a full year's worth of data to look at. And now before we jump through some specific examples, I want to walk through the different widgets that we're seeing here on the homepage. So start with margin summary. We are laser focused on driving profitability for our customers, particularly through the command or better command of gross margins. So what you see in the margin summary, and for finance folks and others, this should look somewhat familiar. It's sort of a mini P&L. And this is a summary of where you are today, or in this case, at the end of 2023. And this should match where you see yourself to the dollar. Throughout the homepage, you're going to see some of that information from sales, cost of goods sold, gross margin carried over. So we can see our margin of 20.5 million obviously represented our margin trend, and same with sales and our sales trend. And we can see exactly what the variance is between the two periods that we're comparing and what that percent is. So that's also going to be displayed in those different widgets. When we're looking at these different widgets, I can hover over different time points to see exactly what data I'm looking at. So it's crystal clear what month I'm currently looking at and what the total data point is pointing to as far as sales. I can see that's 3 million here. And perhaps I want to focus on the lowest number of sales for 2022. By clicking on that data point, it's going to bring me into a full screen view of that sales trend. And I just want to go through this page real quick just to kind of get us more familiar with the overall experience and navigation of profit analytics before jumping into some more examples. So I get that more full screen view. I can see the sales trend graphic above, and it's also going to carry in those filters from the selection I made on the homepage into the grid view. So automatically filtering for February of 2022. I'm going to have the ability to add additional filters as well. If I wanted to filter to a specific customer or any other data point, I would have that ability to add those filters here. You're always going to have the ability to sort the grids the way you want to and see this much more detailed information. So if I wanted to sort by cost of goods sold descending, I could do so, or sales. I have the ability to do that with just a couple clicks. And you're also going to be able to rearrange this data. If all of this data is not important or pertinent to what I'm specifically looking at, I can drag and drop to remove, or I can drag and drop to rearrange the data I'm looking at. I'm also going to have access to additional data points that I can add to this filter. So if I wanted to add document type, I could go ahead and drag that in. And then as I mentioned, drag and drop to remove that. What can be really helpful and really nice for our users is the linking back to the ERP. So if you notice these blue text fields, document ID and customer here, those are actually going to be links back to your ERP system. So I can open up this specific document ID in my ERP, or I can open this customer if I want to view data there or look at any kind of audit history for that business object. I have the ability to open that up directly in the ERP system. Last two things I want to talk about just from the general navigation perspective. One of those is share view. So what this functionality allows you to do is allows you to copy a link that you can share with anyone via Slack, Teams, email, and that's going to send them to a page that has the exact same filters and parameters that you have set. So they're going to be looking at the exact same information I see on this page now when you send them that link. So if you want them to follow up, dive deeper into the data, they're going to be able to get that exact same view that you had. Also know that sometimes certain data makes sense to look through in Excel, and we want to see that in a spreadsheet. So we do also have the ability to go ahead and export that grid view data into an Excel document so you can churn through that. All right, I'm going to jump back to the home screen and just real quickly finish going through the rest of the widgets here. Margin variance analysis, we're also going to see a connection to our margin summary data here as well. We can see that the variance of our margin was positive 1.6 million, and that's exactly what we're going to see in the total impact section of our margin variance analysis. So overall, looks like the business is doing great. We're seeing growth. Maybe we want more, but overall, the business is doing well, is growing. But what's not accounted for when you're looking at it at a high level in the margin summary is where you're possibly leaking and losing margin. And that's where declines and gains are going to show a lot more granular level information about that. So I can see that I had $21.5 million in gains in my margin, but a $19.9 million decline potential loss for margin. And while we're looking at margin variance analysis, just want to talk through some of the different drivers that we're looking at here. So discounts, cost, returns, markdown, price, and quantity. All of these are different drivers that can impact your margins and your profitability. And I like to be crystal clear, specifically with cost and price. When we're looking at a decline for cost of around $100,000, that doesn't mean our cost went down $100,000 over the year. That means changes in cost have resulted in $100,000 in potential lost profits for us. So our price changed and we either didn't update our cost to us from our suppliers changed and we didn't update our price, or we didn't update our price to match that increase in cost we have. So we're going to be able to get into all of those details, which we'll come back to. Next widget is customers over time, which is really going to give you a look at the health of your customers over the selected time period. You're going to get a start count of where you started the year, how many customers you had active, all the way through to the end of the year, what you finished with. You're also going to be able to understand how many new customers did I have in that time period, how many customers were reactivated, which means that they had formerly churned and you were able to win business back or bring them back on as a customer. And then, of course, we can see the about 90,000 churned here over that time period, which could be a normal number to see in a retail business or a retail heavy business such as the one we're looking at. Then the last section I want to talk through is just the sixth widget here is items, top gainers, and decliners. So this is just going to show you at a high level the top 5 growth or decline items based on margin dollars, margin percent, or sales dollars. So I can select that from the drop down here. I can switch back and forth between growth and decline. So this at a high level is just going to let me see those items having the largest impact on my business in a top 5 format. So I want to go through and jump through some actual examples of how different users would use profit analytics on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to start off in our items analytics section. Very first graphic is going to show us our unique items sold over the time period we're looking at. And we know that we're looking at 23 versus 2022. So I can see that over the 12 months, we sold 11,270 unique items. And we can see that kind of at our peak, the unique items we sold in a month was actually 6.6 thousand. So I can already tell that there's a lot of items that we don't sell year round or they're not performing as well year round. So it really helps me understand kind of that product mix. And as an operations manager, for example, I can use this information in tracking our inventory movement of unique items to ensure operational efficiency. And just from product planning perspective, being able to understand which items are selling at any given time. So maybe I want to focus on our last calendar year highest point. I can click into that. And for each item, I'm going to be able to see that ranked by sales or margin or however I want to look at that data. And I can see exactly how many were sold in that time period, what the total amount of sales was. And having this data is going to help influence me to make better decisions about my product mix, how much I want to have in inventory, what I want to purchase moving forward. So a lot of detail here just in jumping into that unique item sold over time. If I jump back to top gainers and decliners, this is just going to be a more full screen view, and I'm going to see the top 10 rather than the top 5 that we saw on that homepage. So I'm going to focus on the decline. As a sales leader, I can focus on which items are performing best, try to capitalize on those trends, and which are underperforming to adjust our sales strategies. And in procurement, I can focus on managing supplier relationships and use the top gainers and decliners to optimize our purchasing strategies, negotiate with our suppliers, negotiate better deals, ensure that there are no supply shortages or excess stock that we're carrying for items that we shouldn't be. So if I go ahead and click into this graph, without focusing on a specific record, I can see those top 10 items, and this gives a really good picture of what we're looking at over time. So you can see the current quantity that we've sold versus the previous quantity. So I can I don't want to open this. I'll go ahead and navigate to it from the graph. So I'll go ahead and filter the grid view. I want to focus specifically on this item. I can see that the current quantity we sold in 2023 was almost 1,700 versus the previous quantity of 2004 in 2022. I'm going to see that same information, being able to compare my margin and my prior period margin, see that variance, and same thing with sales. So I can really understand, and this isn't a huge example of a difference in current quantity. It's not too bad, but maybe I want to dive into this a little deeper. Maybe we had some expectations that this item wasn't going to continue to sell as well, or we were going to start to see some decline. And this might be now perhaps where I want to turn this example over to a business analyst to dive into it further. So I could, of course, share view, get a link to this exact page to send to that business analyst. But I'm just going to show an example of how I would jump into looking at this data a little deeper in a more manual way and kind of for myself. So we have 3 different navigational screens here on the left-hand side for our different KPIs: sales, cost of goods sold, and margin. So I'm going to go ahead and focus on margin. All 3 of these screens are going to look relatively the same when you click into them. Just obviously be sales, cost of goods sold versus margin, what we're looking at now. So now we see that margin trend we saw on the home page as well, get a full screen view of that. But then we're going to display those KPIs by different segments. So I can see my top 10 customers by margin. I can see where their sales are at for that time period. Is that trending upwards or downwards from the prior year? So sales are down a bit, but margin dollars and margin percent are up. So overall looks pretty good, pretty healthy. And I can see that for all items. I could click into any of these records to get to a grid level view with this filtered on that screen. But we have margin by customer, margin by item, so I can see those top 10 items as well. And then what we really like to do is give our users the ability to look at it by segments that matter to them as well. So the bottom 2 grids on this page are going to allow you to select different drop downs, and you can search through the options. So if I wanted to look at this by shipping state and see how I'm doing by shipping state, I could do that. I could just navigate and look back at shipping method. I can look at this by a lot of different segments. That's going to help me get into that data. So now I want to go ahead and find that specific item. I do happen to see it's here, so I could just go ahead and click on that directly. And what that's going to do is it's going to open it up to that previous year filter. So now I have access to see that item for the previous year, all of those sales. It's going to show me each individual document. I can break this down by customer, but I'll be able to understand how cost, price have changed over time. This would be a good example of data I could export out, dive a little deeper into, but this is going to allow someone like a business analyst to really get into those gritty details and understand why changes might be occurring or what those trends look like. Now I want to go back to our variance example. So if I go back to our home screen, I could navigate to margin variance analysis very easily from the screen by clicking into any of these points. If I want to focus solely on discounts or discounts and declines, I could click on those data points and it would certainly navigate me there. But what I want to show is a little different view. If you click on the variance navigation on the left-hand side, this is going to bring you into a top 5 view. And this is really important if you're putting yourself in the seat of an executive or leadership or just anyone who is short on time and might not have a ton of time to dive through a lot of data. So we aim to make it incredibly obvious what the top 5 most impactful items are that are impacting your margin and make that time to consume that information much shorter. So what this does instantly, and by default, it's going to filter to declines, but I could always look at this from a gains perspective as well. I'm going to focus on declines. This is going to answer the questions about where the business is leaking a lot of money that could otherwise be super hard to find. So I can see my top 5 customers that are having decline impacts, and that could be from quantity, price, cost, any of those margin drivers. I can see the same for my item, sales rep, customer class, item class, and sales territory. Knowing that cost and price are potentially two of the things that we have the most opportunity to address, can negotiate in cost, or can at least adjust our pricing when the cost changes, I might want to focus on that and see what I can find just in a quick navigation. So going ahead and clicking into that cost, that's going to filter all of these different margin drivers on this top 5 page to look at declines by cost. And perhaps I'm in charge of a certain product category, item class. Maybe I want to navigate in there and see where we had cost changes that maybe we might have missed out on. Particularly, I'm in charge of our bathroom division. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that example. And now this is where I'm really getting into that third level of detail that can be really, really hard to find without a tool like Profit Analytics. So I can see all of those individual reasons that there have been declines due to unit cost. So I can see unit cost increase for specific items. And it's going to let me know the unit of measure and the specific customer that was sold to. So even if I look at this second example, I can see that there's unit cost increase for this item. And we're providing the information to help you understand what happened already on this screen. So I can see the previous weighted cost was $23 and the current weighted cost is now $35. So we know there was a cost increase. Why are we losing money? And to answer that question, I can go ahead and click into that. And it's going to bring me to a more detailed view that's going to help answer that question. So now I can see these 5 different sales documents with this item for this particular customer. And if I look at unit cost, I'll notice that throughout 2022, the unit cost was $23, and then it jumped to $35 in 2023. And also notice that our price was $47 for our first 2 sales of this item to this customer in 2022, but then the cost or price jumped $8 to $55. What it looks like to me is maybe we had anticipated the cost increasing and we'd increased our price by $8, but then when we actually did take on that cost increase, it was really $12. So for every item we've sold since that time, we're potentially losing out on $4 per order for every single item or for each item we're selling because of that cost increase. So this lets me know, okay, maybe we need to go back and adjust our pricing for the specific item. We should maybe raise it $4. And this is just a really small example that you can get to really quick. You could find some really large examples for different items, or when you're looking at, product mix of 11,000 different items like this company has, there could be a lot that's going to add up to some really big numbers. All right, so now I want to go ahead and jump into an example in our customer analytics. So if I go ahead and click customers, it's going to navigate me to a page somewhat similar to our items analytics page. I'm going to see the customers over time waterfall chart that I saw on the home page. But from this page, as a CRO or a CFO, I'd be highly interested in understanding our customer growth trends, our top gainers and decliners, and having access to churn analysis. Customer retention and expansion are going to be key drivers for our revenue growth, and this data will help develop strategies to retain those high-value customers and address any churn risks. So customers over time, clicking into any of this data is going to allow me to understand any of those different data points. So if I want to understand what customers were reactivated, I could go ahead, click on that data point, and it's going to bring up some really useful information. So I'm going to be able to see that full list of almost 26,000 customers that were reactivated. And by default, I can sort that by lifetime margin or lifetime sales. So I can really understand the impact that this customer could potentially have by bringing them back on as an active customer. Some fairly large customers here who've spent some good money with us. Good to see that we brought them back on in 2023. But I can also see in my days since last invoice, we've already churned one since that time, and we're getting pretty close to some of these other customers at risk are becoming stale and losing these customers, which we'll show in another form here in customers. So if I go ahead and back out and get to that point, customers by recent sale. First, I want to talk about top gainers and decliners. Like we saw with items, we're going to have that same view of information for customers. We're going to be able to easily identify which customers you're growing the most with, where you're losing the most sales. And this is going to, help drive customer ranking and prioritization. That's going to give you the information needed to know where to focus more of your energy. So keep campaigns going with these customers that are doing well. Keep reaching out to them, find out what products are working and selling, and making sure you're getting those products in front of that customer. We're also going to want to focus on decline, see where we're potentially losing the most money. So again, you're going to have that same drill down ability here in this top gainers and decliners section. Since we went through an example of that with items, I won't go too far into that with the top gainers and decliners here in customer. What I do want to get into is more of the customer churn analysis and how you can do that with our customers by recent sale graph here and functionality within Profit Analytics. So as a customer success manager or director, your team would be deeply involved in churn analysis and in understanding which customers are at risk of leaving. And you'd want to use these insights to proactively engage with those customers, provide support, and ensure long-term satisfaction. Measuring gains and losses will also help assess the effectiveness of those retention efforts that you do make. So I can click into any of these data points. I currently have this filtered down to my customer class of distributor, but maybe I want to understand, what customers are currently stale. So by clicking into that data point, I now have this filtered down to those customers that are stale. But I want to take a quick step back and call out how we're kind of assessing these customers and what stage they're in. So you can see recent, we're assessing by 0 to 90 days, stale 91 to 200, at risk 201 to 365, and then churned anyone who hasn't ordered in more than a year. These numbers are completely configurable. We recognize that every business, every organization is different. I certainly wouldn't expect a food supplier or food business to wait a full year without an order to mark a customer's churn. So you're going to have the ability to configure these numbers that make sense to your organization. You might have also noticed the upper limit on churned. That's another configurable number that you can choose to utilize or not. What it does help is if you have customers who have gone bankrupt, are definitely no longer going to do business with you, and have been churned for more than a certain period of time, it's not going to include those in the results. We just don't want to dilute what you're looking at. So it just gives you that ability to not have those show up in your results. So I can easily look through this chart and see more information for my stale customers. These might be customers I want to reach out to. I can see Matthew Leon is a huge customer of ours. It's been 91 days since invoice, and he's by far the largest customer I can see on this page. So that might already tell me that there's an effort that I want to go look into that a little bit more, reach out to that customer, see what we can do to get them ordering more frequently. But what I want to go ahead and do is go through an example, kind of an example scenario. So maybe you have a customer who's a distributor that you've been trying to do more business with for some time. They have potential to be a great large account for you. They're doing well with competitors, and you really want to focus a lot of efforts on that customer. So I have an example of a customer in that bucket, Andrea Burke. I'm going to go ahead and search for that customer and kind of see, not Andrew, see kind of how we've been doing so far with Andrea Burke. So I can see it is a smaller customer, lifetime sales of about 7,300. It's been 104 days since invoice. So it's what we'd currently define as stale. And maybe that looks okay here on paper and at a high level, but we really want to grow this account, and we want to understand, like, okay, 104 days since last invoice isn't terrible. But we also recognize that a lot of our customers are selling to different ship to locations or different individual locations, whether you're selling to hotels, chain stores, convenience stores, medical offices, things like that. We know viewing this detail at the ship to level is equally as important as looking to it at the account level, customer level. So you might have already noticed looking at the screen that there is this selection for ship to addresses. If I go ahead and select this now, it's going to take me over to a view by ship to address. So I can see all these different individual locations we do business with or have done business with Andrea Burke in the past. And now I have a much better picture of how we're performing overall with this customer. I can see that I have it filtered by days since last invoice now. I can see that we have several that are still not churned. We've done okay business so far with a lot of them. But then we have a lot that we've been trying to get into for several years that we haven't had sales for. This gives me a great list to be able to go reach out to this customer, reach out to these different locations, and try and win more business back with those individual locations. And there's a lot of examples where this can look even better, that a customer is buying from you quite frequently at a specific location, but maybe they have individual locations that haven't bought from you in a while, and you could be leaving a lot of money on the floor in that scenario. So I want to go back and just take a look at another example here in the same kind of class. So I'm going to switch my customer class to US dealer. Take a look at my customers, go ahead and jump into this view. So I will have to remove this filter for Andrea Burke. And maybe I'm responsible for a specific dealer and growing business with that dealer. And we'll use Alan Fisher as the example. So I can see it's a fairly large account with us, lifetime sales of over $500,000. Margin's been good, been strong, and our last invoice was 70 days ago. I want to take a look at that information from a ship to perspective as well. So if I jump back over to this view, go ahead and look up Alan Fisher now. I'm probably going to get a similar story that I was seeing for Andrea Burke, right? So have some large sales with different individual locations I can see at the top, but I also have quite a few that haven't purchased in a long time. And actually, looking from the data, the top individual site that we had sold to in the past hasn't bought from us in over a year. They're churned. That's somebody I definitely want to look at and go after. And this really is quite a powerful tool on the way you use it with top gainers and decliners. And just recently, we had one of our customers tell us how they used churn, days since last order, and the size of an order to identify who to contact. And this has led to their most successful campaign ever. So just seeing how they're able to utilize this information here to understand who's the most important to reach out to, getting that timing right, being able to prevent that attrition is huge for businesses. So I'm going to jump back over into the presentation now. And now that we've spent some time in profit analytics, I want to recap how it helps you unlock the power of your data. First, I know I've said this 3 or 4 times already today probably, is real-time visibility. Can you afford to wait until the end of a quarter to realize that your profit margins have taken a hit? With profit analytics, that real-time visibility into your performance is going to allow you to act immediately, turning those potential losses into regained profits. Actionable insights at your fingertips. So imagine knowing at a glance, like we saw today, which customers are at risk of churning or which products are dragging down your profits. Profit Analytics provides those insights effortlessly, empowering your team to make smarter and faster decisions. And the last way is a competitive edge. In today's fast-paced market, the ability to react quickly to profit erosion gives you a competitive edge. Profit Analytics equips you with the tools to outmaneuver your competition while protecting your margins and optimizing parts of your business. And with that, we are at the end of today's presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike, for that super thorough demo. We are ready for Q&A. I noticed we did get a question about the recording for today's webinar. So the answer to that is yes, it will be available. You'll be able to see it on our YouTube channel, as well as on our events page on our website. So that should be available either later today or at the very latest tomorrow. So you'll be able to send those links to colleagues who might have missed today's webinar. Got a question for you, Mike.
Yep.
How often is the data refreshed in Profit Analytics?
Yeah, so 2 answers here. So the margin variance analysis and the driver data that we looked at, that is calculated nightly as it is consuming complex statistical algorithms. And the nature of that data is not going to change much from throughout the day. So it wouldn't make as much sense to have that refresh more frequently. The rest of the data is going to be refreshing every 5 to 10 minutes. So that's going to be pretty real time, really up to date.
Perfect. And then if you can speak a little bit to the licensing of Profit Analytics, how does that all work?
Yeah, so you might be expecting a per user license. That's not how Profit Analytics works. Profit Analytics is a site-based license. There are multiple tier options depending on what data you want access to within the tool. But regardless, if you want 5 users or 30 users, it's just going to be that site license cost. So you can get as much of your team in there as you want and empower them to use the tool.
Awesome. Let's see. I do see we have a hand raised. Bear with me. I'm going to click. I'm going to have Steve allowed to talk. Steve, if you want to join us, you might have a question you'd like to ask live. You'll have to unmute yourself. right, and he might be having some technical difficulties. So Steve, if you're able to type your question in, that would be awesome. Okay. We'll give Steven a second to type in his question.
Yeah, while we're doing that, just speaking on this slide, I don't know, Elizabeth, if we're going to talk through how people can get in touch with us if they want to learn more.
Yeah, definitely. So we've got this QR code here. Go ahead and scan it. It'll take you to our website. Just complete a really short form and let us know you're interested or want to speak with someone. Otherwise, if you're a current customer, you're welcome to reach out to your account manager and dig a little bit deeper. All right, so we'll have to get in touch with Steve, but that is going to wrap up today's webinar. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, Mike, for your time, your thorough demo. So again, if you would like to explore your organization's specific needs, get in touch with us. A couple different ways to do so. We look forward to speaking with you. There will be a really short survey at the end of today's webinar. We would greatly appreciate your feedback. So if you don't mind taking a minute or two to complete that, that would be awesome. Once again, thanks for joining us, and we hope everyone has a great day.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.